Hi everybody, welcome back. Today on Cooking Kitchen we're going to be making some gnocchi. Gnocchi is a potato-based pasta. It's mostly just potatoes and flour. It's a 3-step recipe really. We are going to make the dough and then we're going to boil the dough as you would boil normal noodles, and then we're going to saute the noodles that we've made in like a butter sage sauce. It's delicious. This is a pretty time-intensive recipe. It took me about 2.5 hours, but it is something that your kids can help out with. It's very hands-on. It's very fun to roll the dough out. I guarantee you're going to eat it in like 10 seconds, and I'm sorry that it takes 2.5 hours to make, but it's delicious and it's really inexpensive and it's fun. This is what the final recipe looks like. The ingredients you're going to need for this recipe are Parmesan, garlic, butter, some fresh sage, and some flour, and also an egg. I forgot to film the egg. For today's recipe, you can use either one regular sweet potato or its approximate equivalent in regular yellow potatoes. It doesn't really matter. It'll change the taste a little bit, but the consistency will be the same. To prepare the sweet potato for the oven, you're just going to need to poke some holes in it with a fork to let the heat vent and bake it at 400 degrees for about an hour and a half. Once your potato is cooked, you can see it's going to be really easy to squish. There should be some syrup coming out of the holes that we poked. Overall, it's just going to be really easy to blend up. Once the potato is all cooked, the skin will really easily fall off. Just let it cool and then transfer the inside of the potato to a mixing bowl. Once you've got the sweet potatoes in the bowl, you can either use a potato masher or an electric mixer. I'm going to use an electric mixer. You just want to make sure that there's no lumps left in the potatoes. We want to make sure everything is blended really smoothly so that when we add the flour, it makes a very even consistency. And then once we've got all that, we're just going to add the flour, the Parmesan, and the egg. This recipe calls for 2 cups of flour, so I started out with 1 cup of flour just in case. Then I added the egg and the Parmesan cheese, half a cup of cheese, and mix it up. It did end up being really sticky, so I added more flour. In the end, I used about 3 cups of flour. You just want to add more and more until your dough is no longer sticky. Okay, I ended up adding about 3 cups of flour to this mixture. But now that we have our dough ready, the next thing that we're going to do is roll out our gnocchi into the shape that we want. To get that shape, you're going to want to split the dough into 4 or 5 sections. And then just roll it out with your hands until it makes this sort of longer shape. Now we can just cut our gnocchi into little bits like that. Now, if you want to be really fancy, you can do this technique where you roll a pattern into each pasta. That's too much work in my opinion. You can just cook them like this, and that's what I'm going to do today. So we're just going to repeat that step with all of the dough. I found that the best way to roll the gnocchi was to roll it clockwise into a ball and then back and forth to make the more oval shape. You also might want to ask a family member for help because it was taking a really long time. Now we can go ahead and boil our gnocchi. It was a little bit sticky, so I just dropped them in one by one, but in the water they didn't stick together. Just make sure to stir them every few minutes. And I let them boil until they started to float to the top. That's when you know that they're done. Okay, then to saute the gnocchi, we're gonna put some butter in a pan, lots of butter in a pan over medium heat. One way to incorporate sage into the recipe is to infuse the butter by putting a whole leaf in and then taking them out later, but I prefer to just put all of the sage right in the butter. Then we're adding the garlic. And then we're gonna add the gnocchi and just stir it all together. Let that saute for 10 to 15 minutes on medium-high heat. And then it's done. See how crispy, nice and brown it is. Of course, when you serve it, top it with some Parmesan.